Hi, welcome to the Government. Well, you might have your own opinions on that draw, but we will go over it in depth. We will give it some analysis. We'll give it some rational thinking, which is probably a little bit sparse at the moment amongst Arsenal fans. I've read some stuff, and it doesn't make any sense. A point is a point, and it was at Anfield. But we'll go through it all. With me are the podkateers. We've got Lauren in Barcelona. How are you, Lauren?
I'm good, thank you.
Working hard.
Getting by.
Yeah. Do you do most of your work in the pub, the bar, or whatever? You're lucky.
I wish.
Paul Mack is back. How are you, Paul?
I'm all good, Tom. I'm hoping you can do us a big favour against Southampton the weekend. Well,
you never know, do you? But it is a weird old league, and it's quite interesting. Last season was the first time that I really was so interested in what was going on at the top, and so interested about the bottom as well. And it's carried on this season as well. You just don't know what's going to happen. With us also, you may recognise the face, I'm sure. We have one of the most respected sports reporters in the business. He was chief football reporter for Sky News Sport, and he's also an author of 50 Cup Finals. He's freelance broadcaster, and he is Mr. Nick Collins. How are you, Nick?
Tom, hello. Very good to see you again, and thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Believe me, you're going to get bombarded with stuff. We're going to pick your brains left, right, and centre. And down at the bottom, we have George. How are you, Georgie boy?
I'm good, mate. Hope you're all good.
Yeah, not too bad. We've got lots of things to discuss, so we will crack on. Firstly, before we get going, the podcast is brought to you by the Performance Package 4.0, manscaped.com, for the ultimate grooming experience. We offer you a 20% discount with a special exclusive code, and that is ARS03. ARS03. Go to manscaped.com, pop that in, and you will get the kit plus 20% off. Right then, what have you been up to, Nick? I mean, last time we met on the podcast, we were all holed up, weren't we? We were having to amuse ourselves.
Well, yes, that's right. Seems a long time ago now, and sometimes you think, did it really happen? Life has completely sort of gone back to normal in many ways. But yeah, so still covering the Premier League, not as often as I'd like to, but I suspect that's because I'm rushing up rather closely to retirement age. But yeah, I obviously keep my hand in and do whatever I can whenever I'm invited to cover matches. Obviously, still watching a lot of the Premier League on the TV. Suffered from a bit of writer's block with my third book, but it's started up again and it's going again. So I'm hoping to get that out later this year. And yeah, just loving the title race this year, and I mean loving it.
Nick, what's this book about?
Well, this is another novel. The first novel I wrote was a book about the Royal Engineers, who won the FA Cup back in the 1870s, the only team from Kent, which is where I live, that's ever won it. Now, this is a follow-up. It's set 30 years later, and it basically involves the coming into being of a certain club called Chelsea. But I'll say no more other than that it ends on the battlefields of the First World War. So it's a bit perhaps more ambitious in scope than the last one. I hope it's well received and enjoyed. It's been fantastic fun to research and write so far. Like I say, I hit a bit of a block, a bit of a brick wall, as they say, but I seem to have got round or over that now. And I'm hopefully motoring on again, but thoroughly enjoying the process. And yes, thanks for asking. I'm trying to keep as busy as I can, but you're never as busy as you want to be. It's funny, isn't it? You spend half your life not trying to be too busy and the rest of it wanting to be more busy.
So where are you doing your stuff now, Nick? What channel, what radio station?
Done the odd shift for Premier League Productions on the news side, a couple of games, but it's more a watching brief now. I've done some local radio stuff as well, basically anywhere that'll have me, as they say these days, but still enjoying it, and keep a close eye on England as well. So yeah, that's it's all good stuff.
It's just such a shame, Nick, the circumstances. I'm sure all the audience, our podcast family, want to know all about the Sky debacle. Lots of fans were upset. There was a bit of a backlash when you kind of disappeared from our screens. Paul, I'm sure you've got a question for Nick, one or two.
Oh, I've got loads of questions for Nick. Nick, I just say it's an absolute honour and privilege to be able to speak to you in person this evening. I'm so looking forward to this opportunity we've been given tonight. Yeah, just a couple of random things from me. I mean, you've done so many touchline interviews over the years. You've done so many tunnel interviews in high-profile games. When you look back at your outstanding career, what was your favourite touchline stroke tunnel interview and why?
Wow, yeah, now that's an interesting one. Sometimes I used to really enjoy a manager that would actually come forward and talk about being beaten. And I know that sounds daft,
Yeah.
but it's like everybody can wax lyrical and be Mr. Nice Guy when things have gone well for them. And don't get me wrong, my favourite Premier League manager was Arsene Wenger, for the simple reason that if you asked him a question, he'd give you an answer. He wouldn't. You couldn't get sloppy with him. You had to stay on your toes and show full respect and knowledge and everything. But I guess he would always be the one I'd say would be one of my favourites. But I used to enjoy the managers that would come forward and talk about things with great honesty, even when they'd lost. I know now that happens a lot. Back in the 1990s, when we first took over, it was the devil's own job trying to get a manager to come and speak to you after they'd lost a live game of football. Even half an hour later, they didn't want to know. It was a kind of thing, I suppose, that was accepted in the 80s. You'd leave the losing manager alone. So, yeah, people like Trevor Francis in those early days, I remember having to interview him after he'd just lost the second cup final to Arsenal in 1993. He gave a very dignified interview when I think he probably felt very, very different to that. I'll always remember that. Dave Bassett was another good one for actually doing an interview and telling it how it is, even in defeat. And obviously the big ones. I mean, the very first time Manchester United won the league after that 26-year hiatus, interviewing Steve Bruce and Brian Robson, two particular favourites of mine over the years. That was a real buzz. I remember interviewing Freddie Ljungberg on the pitch at Cardiff after Arsenal had beaten Chelsea to win the cup final, and asked the obvious question: "Hi, Freddie, first leg of the double. How does it feel?" Got a 4-letter reply in response, and it went out live on TV, and I kind of thought, well, I know to be careful with that kind of question again. He apologised profusely afterwards. He was actually unaware that he'd said it. And to be fair, I wasn't that aware at the time. It was only when it was played back to me I realised. But I guess in those days you could get away with it to a degree. But yeah, lots of good memories. People sometimes do things that are unexpected for both good and bad reasons. Kenny Dalglish bowled me a couple of curveballs in his time as Blackburn manager when you think you're sort of on a strong wicket, as it were, and that he wants to be talkative about something, and he can pull the rug from under your feet. I understand why they do it, and gradually over the years you obviously get used to it. Jose Mourinho in the early days was fantastic fun, less so later on, but you know, the England guys over the years have always been very, very good to me, and I'll go back to the likes of David Beckham and Frank Lampard and Steve Gerrard and people like that, and Joe Cole, who always turned up, win, lose or draw, to talk things through and carry that on with their clubs, whereas not all players did that. I mean, and now it's much more managed in that you can't so much request players, you're given players and they're the ones you speak to, like it or lump it. But back in the day when you had a little bit of, not control, but the opportunity to ask for specific people, they came out and delivered for me over and over again. I'll always be very grateful to them for that.
Nick, I'm sure I'll speak for everyone who's going to watch this that we miss you still on our screens, and I don't care what Sky their policy is or anything else like that. The experience, the calmness, everything, the delivery, everything you brought us is absolutely brilliant, and we'd like to see more of you, obviously. Nick, could you kind of put in perspective Manchester City? They've got huge amounts of praise across the board. are we getting a bit carried away with that? Because people saying they're the best team on the planet and all this sort of stuff. Do you think that's fair? Going back to the other teams that you've seen, what's the standout team in your career that you've seen that can't be matched?
Well, you see now that's a real, not can of worms, but that's a really interesting debate that you've opened up, because I could go, oh, Manchester United's treble team of 1999, but then I'd go, actually, no, Arsenal's Invincibles of 2004. And yet, you know, the teams now, the standard, the Liverpool team that won the title, that was just extraordinary, the way they played. I was stood on the touchline with my mouth open at a lot of the football that was played, and yet it's impossible to take your eyes off Manchester City. Are they the best team on the planet? I don't know. They're probably the best squad on the planet, but whether they're the best team or not, I don't know. But I guess we'll find out over the next few weeks. In order to be defined as that, I do feel that they've probably got to do the treble and win that Premier League, win the FA Cup, and win the Champions League. And I'm not sure you can ever call them the greatest team on the planet if they've never won a Champions League. And if they only win one of those three competitions we talked about, that would probably be the one that they would like to win the most, I would have thought, just because it finally completes the circle, doesn't it? They've then won everything under Pep. But until Pep can deliver them that, I guess there'll be one or two people that say, for all their strength and depth, for all their brilliance, for all the goals of Haaland, they still got to win that Champions League. Although I know they scored first against Bayern in the game in the first leg. I don't know what the score is at the moment, but I know they were leading. So it would appear that they'll have a semi-final as well, and that's got to be good news for you guys, because it means that they'll have to play more games during that key run-in. So, yeah, I mean, Manchester City are fabulous. They play some wonderful football, and yet it's about time somebody different won the league, isn't it?
Yeah, it gets to that stage, doesn't it? You're just fed up with the same sort of top two,
and
top
I'd say
three.
the same about Manchester United. I was delighted for them in '93 when they won. By the end of the century, I was going, oh, what, again? But, yeah, so.
Right, Podders, we will be getting onto the game in a second, but I think it would, and what we do, guys, podkateers, is we will come back to Nick with any questions you've got towards the end, because we're not letting him go. We'll let him go kicking and screaming. We'll be holding onto his trouser legs. Nick, got to ask you this: Premier League are discussing the future, their future plans of ditching their multi-partners of Sky Sports and BT, showing their games on their own platform. Now that's a real hoo-ha, isn't it? Because without Sky, there would be a Premier League. They actually build it up into the beast that it's become. But how can they divorce from that setup as well? Because it's going to be a real mess. Are Sky going to get any games at all? I mean, and Sky going to take a big knock. Not so much BT. We don't really include them. But yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on that, really.
Well, I mean, you're right. There would be no Premier League in the way that we know it if it hadn't been for Sky, and the way they absolutely transformed the way football was broadcast, and the amount of time that was given to it, the sheer volume of games, and the quality of the commentating and the co-commentators, the punditry before and afterwards. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you from that point of view. What I do think, though, and it's just business, and it's certainly Premier League business, if there's a way of making more money for that product, the Premier League won't think twice about going down that route. They've proved that over and over again. Yes, Sky have always managed to keep hold of that contract for 30 odd years now, but it's because they've been the biggest payers. And there's some other big hitters now that are moving into the arena, as it were. And do you know what? For years and years, the Premier League have been building up their own expertise in terms of Premier League productions, which shows the games live and mirrors Sky in virtually every way, except the fact you can't see it over here because it's a pan-European thing, or you cannot see Premier League productions live over here. But they're already doing it to a degree. So they've got a lot of the expertise in place. If they deem that they can make more money by doing it themselves, then believe you me, they'll go ahead and do it. Yes, they'll think about should they remain loyal to Sky for the 30 years service that they've given them, plus the BBC and the wonderful match of the day, etc., etc. But you know what? Bottom line, Tom, money talks. And if the profits can be increased that way, that's the way it'll go. I mean, a lot of clubs have looked at doing this, where obviously, you know, it started with MUTV and has carried on since, where the clubs want to bring everything in-house and if you like, exclude the main broadcasters. They feel that there's money in it. It wouldn't surprise me if that's how it goes. You watch on from a distance thinking, well, how can it develop? How can it continue to go on the same platform? They're going to surely have to change things. And I think they will. I think it will change. And unless, I don't know, some legal force and power can be brought to bear that says, no, you can't do that. It's got to go out to a official tender. But I don't know. I mean, it's the Premier League. It's their product. They can do what they like with it, I guess, at the end of the day. And if that's how they feel it's the best way forward to make the most money, then they'll go that way with a thank you to Sky, and off they'll go.
Absolutely, and obviously on the back of that, the Super League's not exactly dead and buried. You know, that'll come back again, as we suspected it would do. Right, let's strap in then, podders. Let's go for the main game. The game at Anfield. Lots to talk about. Jurgen Klopp made 5 changes from the goalless draw at Chelsea and needed a performance, some sort of performance, to encourage supporters that they were actually going to climb up the old table, possibly in with a chance for the top 4. Let's have a look at the Arsenal team then. We had Ramsdale, we had Zinchenko, Gabriel Holding, White, Martin Odegaard, Thomas Partey, Xhaka, Martinelli, Jesus, Bukayo Saka. And that was a 4-3-3 formation. George, were you surprised by that team? Nothing really stood out for me that I didn't know before, with the injuries to Saliba. I suppose Trossard was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah, to be fair, I was like, I'm in an R whether it was going to be like who was going to go out the team for Bukayo Saka, because obviously that's the only main one we probably could have brought in. But I wouldn't have been surprised if I saw Jesus on the bench instead of Trossard, but I think probably 9 out of 10 of us would have probably just put Trossard there. Thought it was a bit harsh on him, seeing as he just won Player of the Month as well.
Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, he's done no wrong, has he?
No.
Whoever you don't pick, you're going to upset.
Yeah. And with Martinelli, like, I think if it was anyone else but Liverpool, I could have seen Martinelli on the bench, but he loves playing against Liverpool, doesn't he? And when you're seeing like Trent Alexander-Arnold, like we'll get onto him later in the show, but
absolutely,
Martinelli normally, well, every time I've heard him play against Arnold, he's kind of had him every single time. So it was an interesting one. Like, I think if Jesus, it's so many questions. Like, if Jesus didn't score the 2 against Leeds, could it have been him? But there was no way that Saka was starting on the bench. It's just it's weird. Like, obviously watching Arsenal recently, we've not had actually competition in the squad. So that now we have that. Like, it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, it's not bad at all, is it? If you've got to do that, scratch at the head, pick someone, and you're happy with whoever he picks. That's the beauty of the setup at the moment. Tierney continues to take up residency, even though there are rumours concerning his long-term future. A lot was made of Arsenal's title hopes going into this game at Anfield. We'll get to the game. But it was important to get something out of this encounter, wasn't it, Paul? I mean, we're all obviously looking forward to get 3 points and a win, but a point was as good as you could probably wish after not getting a result since 2012.
Yeah, I think from the Arsenal perspective, Tom, I think you have to see it as a point gained. When we spoke on the pod last week, I think, if we wouldn't. People on the pod would not be unhappy with Arsenal getting a draw before the game kicked off. And if that's Arsenal's point at the end of the game, then that kind of proves it's a point forward. It's another step forward, the title. As I said last week, you know, I know from this experience watching Everton get defeated so many times there, what you have to do at Anfield is keep the crowd quiet, keep them quiet, don't get them wild, don't get Klopp on the touchline. And for the first 40 minutes, Arsenal did that superbly. I know we're going to come back to that. In terms of the team selection, George, you mentioned I know about Martinelli's good record against Tennessee Derby. I mean, Trossard scored a hat-trick for Brighton last time he played at Anfield. And I was just kind of wondering, you know, either A, should he come on a bit earlier, or was there some way of finding a place for the team? Obviously, you guys know better than me, but I was just kind of thinking, yeah, if you're a Liverpool defender and you're up against Trossard, you're thinking, hang on, he banged in 3 against us last time he was here. You know, would that just put a few question marks against Liverpool's back four? I don't know. I just throw that in there. But you're right, Saka had to play. You know, your strongest possible team out there. It was unfortunate, I think, that Saliba was not fit for the game, because I think he would have made a massive difference, particularly in the second half. But it was I think Arteta, with the only kind of query about Trossard, picked the best possible team to go out there and get a result. And for 40 minutes, it was nailed on to get it.
Yeah, it looks exceptional, doesn't it? Lauren, another fast start. The stadium was as quiet as I don't know whether it was the TV coverage, but you could hear a pin drop at one stage, and you never get that at Anfield. 8 minutes in, Martinelli puts us ahead. Saka drives forward into the Liverpool defence, tries a 1-2 with Odegaard. The return ball pops off Van Dijk. I mean, I do enjoy seeing Van Dijk mess it up because he gets so much praise. And then it just went to Martinelli. It was a struggle, though, wasn't it, Laura? Because I didn't think he was going to get that ball in the net, but somehow he managed.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where as soon as it left his foot, I wasn't really sure if it was going to go in or if it was going to bounce out or if there was even enough on it to carry out over the line. But look, you know, even when you saw I think I had to watch the replay once or twice to see actually if he did get a touch on it or who went off, you know. Look, it doesn't matter. We'll take any type of goal we can get. That's not the issue. But yeah, no, I think there was definitely a bit of luck in the build up as well. It was a great bit of play from Saka, and Odegaard got a bit unlucky, but you know, at the end of the day, the ball fell nicely for Martinelli.
Because he was falling, wasn't he? As he had to kind of stay upright long enough to get a shot in.
Look, and you know what? Sometimes you just get lucky in these situations. Doesn't happen that often for us Arsenal fans, but you know, when we get it, we'll take it. And you know, credit where credit's due. It was a decent finish from Martinelli. He kept it cool. He was able to get the vital touch on it, and what a start! You know, 8 minutes in, it was an incredible way to get the game going.
Nick, Virgil van Dijk, been considered one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. He's picked up a series of injuries: ankle, hamstring, ruptured cruciate ligament. That was back in 2020-21. Do you feel he's at the same level that he was at? Because I think there's something missing from his play. He's still damn good, don't get me wrong, but he just seems a little bit out of sync to the player that we saw originally.
I agree with you, actually, Tom, because I think some of the injuries may have played a part in it. Maybe it's because he's a confidence player, and he actually, the better the side are playing, the better he plays, and the more he shines within that and becomes the absolute fulcrum of that defensive setup. But yeah, 1 or 2 times you thought, actually, that's not really the Virgil van Dijk that we've seen before. So I think Liverpool generally, their defence, this has been one of the poorest seasons I can remember for their back line, and I'm sure Jamie Carragher is pulling his hair out week in, week out about some of the things that go on. But interesting to hear the different views. Was it a point gained or two lost? And I'm absolutely agreeing with, if you'd offered most Arsenal fans a 2-2 draw before the start, they would have taken that, because that's still a great result. And given what happened in injury time, it was an even better result. It was definitely a point gained, because that could easily have been 2-0 up, lose 3-2. You know, those are the kind of games that very often decide titles. And Arsenal came out the right way of it against Bournemouth with that 90+ 7-minute winner. Here they could have fallen the other way, and they didn't. And thanks to Aaron Ramsdale, they got a valuable point. That might be the point. You never know. That just might be the point.
A lot of people saying that
everything is said and done. Now, you could equally argue if they fall short by 1 point, then well, if they'd have hung on, they would have won the title. But listen, it's a very simple equation. We all know what it is. Arsenal win all your remaining games and you're champions. End of story. Unfortunately, Manchester City do the same. They're champions, but we'll talk about that more later, I'm sure.
I think as well is if podders, if you haven't been to Anfield, you probably don't understand what that atmosphere is like. I've been lucky enough and unlucky enough to go there a couple of times. We never got the result that I wanted when I did go, and that put me off a bit. But it is it's one of those hotbeds of football. There's a few grounds in this country that I really enjoyed going to. St James's Park, obviously Old Trafford, and Anfield. They're right up there. They are immense grounds. And once that crowd gets up, which we will talk about in a minute, it is a phenomenal thing. It's like one person, one voice. It really is intimidating. So let's go back to the match. 34 minutes, a little bit of a flare-up. A frustrated Xhaka was fouled seconds before he put a hefty challenge on Trent Alexander-Arnold, who retaliated. There was a full-on waggles in a circle type of situation with pushing and shoving, and both were booked. After that, pundits seem to get on his case, George, about his attitude, and that with the outcome of the game, Xhaka cost us the game. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely mental, isn't it? Because I mean, he does whatever he does, and he does that regularly. And sometimes you have your heart in your mouth, but you take that away from his game, and he's been one of our most consistent and best players this season, then you've lost Granit Xhaka.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny when Arsenal winning week in, week out and putting great performances in, you don't hear anyone saying anything about Granit Xhaka and like to do with that. But as soon as the slightest thing goes wrong, they all jump on the Granit Xhaka bandwagon again. I think, to be honest, I'd say between 80 to 85% of Arsenal fans have got to swallow some big humble pie, including myself, because the way Xhaka is like a superhero, the way he's turned the fan base from what he was and how he was viewed to now. And I agree, mate. Like, I think if you take that part of Xhaka away, you lose him, and I don't really think it was his fault as much. I think he was at. I've heard for like months and probably years that Arsenal don't show any fight, or if you get in Arsenal's faces, that they get bullied even. And whenever we like show some sort of character, it's if it wasn't for them, they would have lost they wouldn't have lost the game. So and as you probably can gather, I'm not a fan of Trent Alexander-Arnold, so I think he
I don't know who he is, to be honest, George.
He's a bit of a media darling. Like, he does things and gets away. Like, he has a different perspective of him. So I don't know. I think it's a bit stupid people saying, "Oh, Xhaka lost us the game." And just going back to what people said about, is it 2 points dropped or 1 point gain? If I'm wrong, didn't Man City lose to Liverpool?
There's going to be lots of ups and downs in this.
And I think
these last few games.
And I think only one. I might be wrong, but I'm sure there's not many teams that have actually beat Liverpool at Anfield. So they might be having a very bad season. But I went to Anfield twice last season. I think it was when we played them in the cup and then in the league. And obviously, where I can't see, I have to use a headset. But when they start singing, there's no point because you can't hear it. They're like, "Oh, is there anything we can do?" And I'm like, "Can you tell them to stop singing for a little while so I can hear what's going on?" But with the Xhaka thing, I think he's been one of our most underrated players this season. Granit Xhaka, and I can't believe I was.
But the thing, George, is that he's played in the right position now, isn't he?
He is.
We're getting the best out of him because someone's unlocked that door.
Yeah, I think you're seeing the Switzerland Xhaka instead of like the one who built himself not a great reputation in the Premier League, because that's what he had done. Like, that is my opinion on it all. Like, there were some things he'd done that were wrong, but there were some fouls or stuff that he'd done, and if that was anyone else apart from Xhaka, I don't think they get punished as much. But this season, you're not seeing that as much. And the thing is, like, if Arsenal win 2-1, I wonder how many people or pundits or whoever are saying that Xhaka is an idiot.
Yeah, it's as I say, he splits opinion, always has done. I've not had the best sort of opinion of him in the past. But he's proved us all wrong. I mean, he is a genuinely quality player that we need in this side. Gregor Robinson said, I think it's been very overblown personally, the Xhaka incident. Maybe people who could feel the crowd better, feel that crowd better than me, but it didn't have anything to do with the goal that was scored. That changed the game. And it was defensive errors, wasn't it? It was nothing to do with that part of the field, even though it was like, what was it, a minute later or something? It was just ridiculous. And PTM on Twitter says, media wants us to turn on Xhaka. They want to create a story out of it. It wasn't the moment which energised the crowd. Liverpool scoring the goal a few minutes later was exactly right. So let's get to that goal. 42 minutes. Salah gets on the score sheet. Jota pulls back the ball for Henderson, who then manages to side foot it somehow, awkwardly, clumsily into the path of the Egyptian. So that was when it turned. Paul, I mean, we were on top of them, weren't we? We were really. I mean, they had nothing. There was nothing going on. It's like they were asleep.
Yeah, Arsenal killed the crowd. There was no reaction from the supporters at all, and it was just really a case of getting through to half time. I agree with what you and George are saying as well. I think the whole Xhaka Grana thing, it's been a distraction because when I saw the goal, I just kind of thought as the first half went on, Arsenal giving Salah too much space. He was being allowed to cut in unmarked all the time. He was finding space on the flanks, in the box. And I'm just looking at what's thinking, just get to half time at 2-0 because the crowd's up. But if you get to 2-0 at half time, the crowd's going to calm down by the time you get for the second half. So it was really important to defend doggedly almost for the last 6-7 minutes, And if that needs a few tackles, take a couple of yellow cards, a few rosette clearances, just get to half time and regroup. That's all I was kind of thinking. But it was a poor goal to give away. And it wasn't lucky deflection from Jordan Henderson. But Salah has got time and space to pick a spot, and you can't give a striker of that quality that time and space. I accept he's good at finding space. I mean, look, we have to give him that. But yeah, it was just a really unfortunate goal. And then I think that changed the balance of the game. To me, if it's 2-0 at half time, I think Arsenal, I think it's the tune last week, Tom. You needed George Graham in the dressing room. They say, look, this was like an 89, lads. This is what we did, right? This is what you need to do now in the second half to come away and get the win. And they just need to calm things down. But the goal changes the game, and even more so because with Liverpool attacking that end in the second half, that you just know there's going to be immense pressure to hang on to the lead. So really unfortunate. You don't want to see the goal just before half time, and in particular when you're 2-0 Liverpool, you don't want to give them hope just before half time as well.
Yeah, as I say, that quote there from the Twitter piece said it all. Really, it wasn't anything to do with Xhaka. Once they got that goal, they were never going to sit back and sort of defend or anything, were they? Or let you get at it. Lauren, Arsenal had to see that half out clinging on, really. They were dominant, Liverpool, and it didn't change in the second half. What annoyed me the most was the slack passing, lack of possession. They beat us to every second ball. It was absolutely painful to watch. And as we said before we came on, bit nail-nibbly, wasn't it? It was like shaking the armchair, wondering what was going on. They absolutely run us ragged.
Yeah. It's probably the most uncomfortable half of a football match I've had to watch this season. Also, I think we missed the second goal, Jesus' goal. So I don't know if you want to go back to that.
Yeah, we'll go back to that. Yeah, I've done it again, haven't I? It's because
there's so much to cover.
iPad.
The second half was awful. And honestly, I don't remember anything concrete from the match apart from just the pure anxiety watching it, and you just felt at any moment they were going to score, and it was uncomfortable. It was very sloppy. I don't think we've seen such a disjointed performance from Arsenal in the Premier League this season as we did in the second half at Anfield. Obviously the crowd got behind them. It's a very daunting place, but given the really, really good first 40 minutes, you would have liked them to kind of pull it together, and because they showed they could do it. Obviously you know, Liverpool come back into it. The margins are a bit more narrow, but it was a really disappointing way to end the game. And you know, just it was a great defensive performance from Gabriel, and obviously we're going to talk about Ramsdale as well. But I think without those two, we would have been in a lot stickier situations because, you know, as soon as the ball went past the halfway line, we just looked like we'd run out of steam, run out of ideas. It was hard to watch. And for that reason, I'm pretty happy we did come away with the point. And, you know, you have to take what you can get.
Well, any rational Arsenal fan will be happy with it, especially with the circumstances, especially with the way the second half was. Right, I saved that 28-minute goal for Nick. Yeah, that's what I did. It wasn't because I lost my track on the iPad. 28 minutes gone, it's that man, Jesus. Excuse the puns about rising at Easter, but he did. Xhaka fed the ball across. Alexander-Arnold, who for me is a massive weak link in Liverpool's side. He's all right going forward. I mean, he's immense going forward, but he just lacks a bit of awareness and positional sort of awareness when he gets back. Jesus found himself in an acre of space against all these giant Liverpool players, and he popped it in the net. It was incredible to see him rise and outjump these 6-footers, but he did. What have you made, Nick, of Jesus? This is absolutely seamless. We're making it sound like it was on purpose. But what have you made of Jesus this season?
I thought you were going to say, what did I make of Jesus at Easter? But I think his is a great story, to be perfectly honest, because when he joined, he had a bit to prove from the Manchester City days of not being part of that first team on a regular basis. He became that at Arsenal. Then there was that really bad injury, and he missed so much of the season. You did feel for him, and you wondered whether that is going to absolutely cost you the title, and whether he's going to be able to get back to the kind of form that he was showing beforehand. And it would appear that he's doing it. I mean, I know people would argue that, he's not as prolific as he could be. He's still got 8 Premier League goals and 5 assists this season. And given how many games he's missed, I think that's a pretty good effort. And I think going into the closing stages of this title run-in, I think you guys will be delighted that you've got him, because you've got a player who knows what it's like to win the Premier League, and that is priceless. And you've got a couple, as it happens. So I think that's why it's going to be a very, very even title race. And it's good to see Gabriel Jesus scoring goals and playing well. I always felt he got underused at City. I thought he's a very clever player, and that he deserved to start more often. But for whatever reason, he didn't. But now he's got the opportunity, and as I say, it's a great story. If 2 ex-Manchester City players help stop Manchester City winning the title, I mean, that's what we guys in journalism absolutely love. So let's see how it unfolds. But no, I mean, you must be delighted that he's come back and he's getting his sharpness back, and that your sharpness all season and your goal scoring power hasn't diminished, even when you lost a player of his stature for so long. And that's something that the whole side, I think, and Mikel Arteta can feel very proud about.
I don't know what happened to him, because he looked a bit rattled, Lauren, didn't he? Did you notice he was a bit rattled? Looked very upset. Maybe it was the physicality of Liverpool. But yeah, there's something strange going on, and he had to have a word in his ear.
Jesus, was it?
Yeah, Jesus. Did you not see it? Did you
No,
see it, Georgie boy? Paul?
What? Literally, I didn't see it, but but I think it was. So I think it was just to do with the tackles on him, because there was like 2 or 3.
He did
in
get
the
warrants
first half.
quite a few times, didn't he?
Yeah, and apparently it goes back to when he was playing at Man City as well, because he had like drama with Liverpool back then as well. So I assume it was to do with that, I would have thought.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So 52 minutes, there was a penalty shout. A corner causes havoc in the Arsenal box. Holding tangles with Jota, heading away from goal. It was all a bit of a strange affair, that. And it was just a connection of legs. It reminded me of the David Luiz sort of incident where I think he got sent off. I don't know who that was with. No VAR review. Paul, what did you make of that? Penalty? No penalty?
Sadly, I thought it was a penalty. I thought it was a silly challenge, that there was no danger. Just didn't think Arsenal dealt with the corner correctly. It's just a case of getting rid of the ball as quickly as you can. Poor challenge. And I think I don't know what you guys felt at that stage. Well, we're at home thinking if that goes in, it's 2-2. There's only going to be one winner in this game. And me and the son there on the couch praying the Salah would miss it for all sorts of reasons. And thankfully he did. And I think you have to give Ramsdale some credit as well, because his antics on the goal line a little bit. He was doing his best to unnerve Salah, and given that Salah missed his last penalty, you just kind of thought, well, he's got a bit of a barrier to overcome here. And I think because I don't know what goes through the mind of penalty takes, but I'm sure when you're taking the penalty, you kind of went out, how good is the goalkeeper I'm up against? And you must think, well, I'm up against one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League here. I've really got to deliver my best shots. And I think he's just tried to be a little bit too accurate, and it's worked to Arsenal's favour. But I don't really think that you have any great complaints about the penalty. It was a daft challenge to me. And you just know when you're at Anfield, any 50-50 challenge like that is never going to go in your favour. The officials are always going to be intimidated by the crowd, by club ranting away on the touchline, and you just know it's going to go in their favour. So yeah, it comes to challenge. It was a penalty, but thankfully nothing came of it. Yeah,
unfortunately, Rob Holding's not the quickest bunny, is he? So it kind of had that inevitability about it. 54 minutes, as you said, that he missed the penalty, stroked it wide, and that's about the third one, I think, this season. 57 minutes, Ramsdale saves from Salah, who was trying to make a point, I think. That's probably the best performance I've seen from Ramsdale. We'll talk about it more, obviously, because there's more saves, but it's the best performance in an Arsenal shirt that I've seen him make this season, Lauren.
This season for sure. I think we've had a few instances in the past few weeks where we've been 3-0 up, and a silly goal goes in, and we all saw in the documentary last season how important it is for him to keep the clean sheets. And obviously, as it gets a bit tighter up the top, and as we come into the final few weeks, it's looking likely that goal difference could play a role. So it's not even just for him, it's for the team as well. But it was for sure the best performance that I've seen from him this season. It was some incredible saves. I'm sure we're going to look at them in detail a bit more, but I think if we didn't have him, it would have been a different story, and it would have been a very, very disappointing 3 points dropped, having been 2-0 up in the first 40 minutes. But he was exceptional. He looked, I think we kind of forget how young he is as well, especially for a goalkeeper. Crazy talent. I think back to the save he made last season against Leicester, and I think that was when we all kind of went, all right, okay.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, we have someone good here. And since then he's proved his worth time and time again, and what a number one to have at the club at such a young age. And long may it continue that he and hopefully injuries provided, nothing, he doesn't pick up anything, but it was a great performance from him. And I think it's been a while. We haven't had a great Ramsdale performance in a long time. Probably a credit to the outfield team. Normally one of them picks up the man of the match accolade, but this was the time when we really needed our keeper to step up, and he did. And yeah, thankfully saved us the point.
Paul, surely he's got to be pushing Pickford now, international level, isn't he? I mean, he's been close before, but these performances, Southgate can't keep ignoring him, can he?
He's definitely put himself into the debate there. It was a top goalkeeper performance, possibly one of the best I've seen in the Premier League this season. Obviously, from my own personal bias perspective, I think George Pickford's a really good goalkeeper who never gets the credit he deserves when he plays for England. But yeah, it's
very dependable, isn't he, for England?
Well, and for Everton as well. And I think as well, but what I like about Ramsdale as well is he's come up the hard way. He's played for Bournemouth, he's played for Sheffield United, he's played the teams been struggling against relegation. He's used to dealing with being peppered with shots during the game. And you could see that as the second half went on. He was almost thriving on being under. I'm sure he didn't want to be called to action so often, but you just see he was kind of thriving on being called to produce save after save after save. It was a fantastic performance. It really was. He's an outstanding goalkeeper. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And I don't know, what you were thinking during the second half, because as Lauren and yourself has said, and George has said, it was it was a pulsating second half for all the wrong reasons if you're an Arsenal fan. And I was screaming, must say, saying, is this not the time to bring Tierney on as a more defensive left side to cut down Salah's space on the flanks? I just thought you'd be given way too much room, and maybe it needed a defensive change there. I don't know. That's gone off track slightly, but yeah, Ramsdale, outstanding performance, and from Gareth Southgate's viewpoint, got two top-class goalkeepers. Pickford's getting injured, Ramsdale takes his place, and then the challenge is for Pickford to displace Ramsdale if that's the case.
Georgie, Liverpool started the substitutions around the 60-minute mark. To be fair, I was thinking about the 60-minute mark that we were looking a bit ragged. When you're taking that sort of level of pressure, you need to release it somehow. And for me, I was kind of thinking down not that I'm Mikel Arteta, he knows much more than I do, that's for sure. But I was thinking Tierney and Trossard maybe to kind of mop up on that left-hand side, maybe replace Martinelli. Zinchenko looked to be suffering on the left, and he kind of got beaten a couple of times. Not that we're beating him up, because he's a fantastic player, added so much to us. But were you surprised about the substitution? Trossard for Jesus, Kirill on for Odegaard, which was an odd one. What did you make of it?
The Trossard and Jesus one, I wasn't as surprised. I can kind of get that, because when we've been playing with the false nine, when Jesus has not been available. The Jakub Kiewel one for Odegaard, I was a bit surprised with. See, for me, if you was going to do a sub like that, like I say, I don't know. It's like I'm not an expert like Mikel Arteta, but if he was fit, and
he's all right with us, Georgie, isn't he? Old Mikel.
Yeah. Like if he was fit, I would have put Jorginho on, like instead of Odegaard, because like he's played in experienced settings like that, and that's the only thing that smacked me of Arsenal in that second half. We had no proper experience that could deal with an atmosphere like that, because like we said, it's when the Liverpool fans find their voice, they are probably one of the loudest in the world. I wouldn't say just the Premier League, but if you had someone like Jorginho in there just to slow it down and just block it out. I was watching the game in the pub, and I was like, for about 10-15 minutes, like, he just needs to make a sub. I would have like you said, bring Tierney on for Zinchenko, because I love Zinchenko to bits, but he was struggling. So
yeah, every time Trent Alexander-Arnold went forward, he had the issues, he had problems. But as we say, we're not beating him up, and we saw how badly it affected him when he was subbed. I mean, he put his head in his hands. As a player, when you've done something or you've not done it.
Yeah, and exactly. Like, and to be fair, like the amount he's done for us this season is amazing. Like I'm still sticking to my bet I made earlier in the season that Zinchenko scored a winner at City. I'm still
that'd be a nice headline, wouldn't it, Nick?
Yeah. Just so you, Nick. But I think, like, I don't know. Jorginho was the one I probably would have, because I don't think Kievor's played that many Premier League games, if he's played any at all.
I don't think he's played any.
One thing I will say is that I know there was a lot of Arsenal fans really worried about Holding at Anfield, and apart from that penalty, I actually thought he done okay, not as bad as I thought he would. So, but yeah, Tierney, Jorginho, Trossard would have been the three for me. Because apart from that, I don't really know who you could bring on. I wouldn't bring Vieira on, because I don't think he can. Nothing on him. He's still got a while to go, but I don't think you can trust him in a setting like that.
I think it was a bit physical for him as well, wasn't it? He's not up to speed on the old physical.
ESR's just come back from injury, so do you really want to risk that? Probably not. So for me, it would. But I think what people forget as well, like Arsenal going for titles at Anfield hasn't happened for a long time, and none of these players have really done that. And even Arteta hasn't done that. So he's learning as we're going along. As I keep saying, you read Twitter and it's like not being able to see people's facial expressions. I just laugh at some of the tweets when there's like the meltdowns I see. And I'm like, if I said to any of the Arsenal fans, "Oh, we'll be 6 points clear after getting a point at Anfield in April for the title," I'd probably be sectioned. I probably would. Especially after last season. Like,
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. We had a mayor last season. How we're such a juxtaposition that where we are at the minute. 81 minutes. Ramsdale makes another vital stop from Nunes. Salah played a brilliant through ball, but the Arsenal goalkeeper gets big and down with his left hand to keep him ahead. 85 minutes. Gabriel from a Saka corner straight to Alisson. He had to do better with that, but it's one of those, isn't it? You get your chance, you rush it a little bit, and it doesn't come off. Here's the one, 87 minutes. Alexander-Arnold nutmegs Zinchenko before putting in a quality delivery to the back post, where that Firmino, he turned up. I can't wait to see the back of him. Every Arsenal fan must be. I'll drive him to the airport myself. But as soon as he came on, I said to the missus, this is the guy I don't want to see. This is the guy who comes up and scores. Nick, what do you make of Firmino? Obviously, he's not getting the proper game time that he deserves. I mean, he's still a quality player. It must be 31 if he's a day. He'll do well wherever he goes. He's got fantastic awareness and ability as well, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's another one of those players, Tom, that you think likes to have the manager put his arm around and give him a hug from time to time. And if he doesn't feel he's really getting that, then it can affect his performances. But yeah, he does seem to enjoy playing against Arsenal. Took his chance well. But I've got to say that Alexander-Arnold's cross was just absolutely sublime, given the context of all of that. And I take on board everything everybody says about Alexander-Arnold, the defender. But do you know what? Alexander-Arnold, the midfielder, or Alexander-Arnold, the winger? I mean, why don't we see that? And we surely have a world-class player there. But to get back to the goal, it had been coming. Once it had happened, it would have been very easy for 2-2 to have become 2-3 from an Arsenal perspective. So I know there'll be huge disappointment that you didn't quite manage to hang on, but it is a bit of a cauldron up there. And the way the game was going, I think to escape with a point in the end was a job well done. And I do think that game, the Bournemouth game, the Aston Villa game, even the Manchester United game, most of them are going in your favour in terms of the really tight ones at the end. That one could have gone against you and didn't, and the others looked as if you weren't going to win and somehow you did. That's what champions do, and I think that's what Arsenal have to remember above all else over the next few games, that they have got this ability to find something special, and you haven't had that for several years.
Well, the thing is, the Arsenal fans, sorry, Podders, not you, those ones, the other Arsenal fans, they're a bit prickly. They're a bit upset about nothing in particular. So we don't have anything to do with those. 90 minutes plus 4, Salah goes close. 90 plus 5, Ramsdale again, by the power of Ramsdale. He makes a superb save. Salah cuts onto his left foot, goes for his trademark finish for the top corner, and his effort looked goal-bound, didn't it? Somehow, he gets a fingertip and pokes it wide. 90 plus 6, Nunes puts the ball across to Konate, who somehow fluffs his lines. Should have stuck his head on it, couldn't get anything on it at all. And then Ramsdale kind of just backpedals and flicks it out. It reminded me, Paul, of Seaman 2003 against Sheffield United, that impossible sort of save, although it was a kind of different save, it was lower down. Or Banks 1970 versus Brazil.
Yeah, it was a stunning save. I mean, Lauren, I don't know if you follow the Marca Twitter at all, but I was reading their comments as well, and they put, for the first save from Salah, they put, Ramsdale's just made the best save of the season. A minute later, forget that, he's just made an even better save now a minute later.
That's football for you, isn't it?
I thought that just summed it up. Yeah, I mean that second save, you made some good comparisons there, Tom. It's absolutely brilliant because it's just so close to going over the line. It looks a goal all the way. And Nick has mentioned a number of times there about, these kind of results win you championships and hanging on for that point. And I think you can see by the reaction of the Arsenal fans who were in the stadium how appreciative they were of that performance. That there was no rancor about dropping the 2-0 lead. It was a get behind the team. It's a point earned. And, at the end of the day, that might be the point to get Arsenal over the line. But I haven't got enough words to praise Ramsdale. I just thought it was a superlative performance. And when you're coming off that pitch, if you're on the Arsenal back four, you're thinking, I can make a mistake and he's going to get me out of it. And that's going to give you real confidence on the running towards the end of the season.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, I agree with that.
it was an astonishing performance, really. And for all those podders out there that didn't want him to come to us and he was overpriced, have a little think about that when you see
I
that.
remember
And
that.
that Leicester save. I think the thing that gets me is his agility, because he does a save, he drops down, and then someone else comes in, and he's got the ability to sort of get back up and have another one as well. It's absolutely astonishing. Anyway, my big grumble was the Konate tackle on Xhaka, 48 minutes, no whistle, no VAR. Some thought it was a fair tackle. I thought it was a yellow card and a free kick, to be honest. What did you think, Lauren? He proper went through, didn't he? He was on his side. It looked an ugly tackle from where I was.
For sure. I think in general, the quality of the refereeing, which isn't the first time we've mentioned this season, but you know, I just felt the game in the second half, the referee lost a bit of control over it. It got a bit scrappy. And I think he let a lot of things go, which probably should have been called back. And I think that, you know, if you're not in control of the game as the referee, you're going to have challenges like that flying in throughout, and it's going to rile up the players even more, especially in an atmosphere like Anfield. I think, you know, even the fact that there was no foul given, no, not even a free kick or anything, it was a bit disgraceful. Yeah, but there was a few decisions on the afternoon that I kind of...
Yeah, I don't think it was Paul Tierney's finest game, that's for sure. But we'll just give him the benefit of the doubt, saying that he is at Anfield, and to referee that game, you've got to be a hard head. You've got to have no heart and probably a steel hat on or something. But yeah, I agree. The line of his body as he went in, it was kind of at an angle. He was going on his side, and Xhaka span round with the impact. He's not someone to kind of make something out of nothing, is he? No. Not like the modern footballer today, you know, oh, I've hurt a fingernail or whatever. But yeah, I thought he was an inch or two away from a serious injury that would have sidelined him for the rest of the season. Paul, what's your slant on that? Did you think that the referee got let too much stuff go? Too many fouls? Because Saka was getting bounced up. Everyone was getting bounced up. In the second half, it got very, very physical.
Yeah, I think Fabinho as well was putting in a few tackles that could have been, you know, could have received the yellow card as well. It's difficult for match officials. I really do appreciate that, you know, because they also get close up with the intensity of the game, though they try to be dispassionate about it. And there's that level to try to let the game flow or call them back and call them back for a free kick every time. But yeah, I thought the challenge on Konate was poor. I thought it merited the yellow card. Okay, it's not going to. I don't think it's going to affect the outcome of the game particularly, but it's a regular theme that the quality of officiating at the top level in these high intensity matches. And I have no sympathy for referees. It's a really, really hard task, and whatever decision you make, you're never going to keep people happy. You know, I think you should be quite thankful that was just Stuart Atwell refereeing the game on Sunday, because that would have been a completely different outcome. But yeah, it's a tough job, and yeah, unfortunately, you just have to accept that Anfield is the type of stadium where Klopp can run on the pitch in the 90th minute to celebrate a winning goal, nothing happens. It's the type of stadium where Klopp can shout down the ears of a linesman, giving it a load of obscenities, and nothing happens. And you just have to accept that when you go to Anfield, that officials are intimidated and decisions go in the home side's favour. I'm not being least biased there at all.
Nick, what have you made of... No bias there at all, is there? Nick, what have you made about referee standards this year and VAR? Do you see any improvement with VAR?
Well, sometimes you feel it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back with VAR. Some of the things that have happened this season have left us shaking our heads, and yet there was getting to be a stage where you thought, okay, it is improving, it's becoming more consistent. I will just say this one thing about Premier League referees. My team plays in League 2, and if you think the refs are bad in the Premier League, you ought to come and watch the guys that we have to put up with week in and week out.
I bet the food's better and cheaper though, Nick.
It's still not there, is it? VAR is still not the instrument that we hoped it would be by now, but I think you've got to stick with it and hope that it's eventually going to get there. The speed thing drives me absolutely mad when it takes forever to make a poor decision. or no decision at all. That I don't think I'll ever get used to that. But it all adds to the drama. I think you can certainly say that. And yeah, if we didn't have a ref to moan at, who else are we going to take our frustrations out on?
Well, we'd do a podcast just to have a moan amongst ourselves. That's what we do. Right, we'll get off the game. I think it was a fair result for us in the end. I mean, as much as we were brilliant in the first half, we were terrible in the second. They were dominant, and a point at Anfield is not to be sniffed at. Don't start crying into your shirts, Potters. There's plenty to play for. There'll be ups and downs, twists and turns, and we'll see what happens. City are still involved in competitions. Not that we're banking on that, but there's always a surprise. This league is amazing. It throws up games and results that you didn't expect. I mean, it's going to go like that. We've got a game next week, haven't we, for the girls? It's on Wednesday, isn't it, Lauren? We'll talk about the pod. I think it's against Man United next Wednesday, isn't it? So on the next pod, we'll cover that, and you can hopefully give us some good news about injuries, because they're falling like ninepins, aren't they? I got really annoyed. I got really annoyed during the week. So-called Arsenal supporters and their comments regarding Mikey Pooley on Twitter. Now, there he was. He's I don't know what age he is, but he was born.
He's 11.
He's 11, right? He was born sighted. He lost his sight at 7. He goes to the Arsenal games. Now, what Arsenal do is they throw themselves into providing headsets, tactile sort of surroundings, all the support you could wish for. And he's gone to this game, and he's like any normal supporter. But he's had to come out on Twitter and said to all you haters saying I shouldn't go to games because I'm blind, wasting a ticket, I will be going to every game possible to cheer on the Arsenal. My disability does not define me. Dan Smith, we're going to name and shame. Dan Smith on Twitter said, so you're telling me I didn't get a ticket because someone who couldn't even watch the game went instead? And it gets worse. And we'll pick up with this with you, George, because I think when we first met, and I said about coming on the podcast, you actually said to me, well, I'm blind. And I said, well, some people with sight see less than you do.
Look at VAR.
Absolutely. I just got that then. We've got a user 10342605924005. Doesn't even know what the Emirates looks like. Callum Parker taking a valuable ticket. He can't even watch it. A Twitter page called Arsenal. You're joking me. I'm losing out on a ticket for a person that can't even see the game. And we'll just finish off with one more. And you should be absolutely ashamed of yourselves. And I'm ashamed of you. And I really wish you supported someone else. I'm getting so cross now. Theme Park Shorts. Why are you going to a game if you can't see it? George, put these idiots in their place about what you can actually get out of a game as an Arsenal fan.
So I've had this myself like a good couple of times. I only had it recently as well. The exact same comments. Surprisingly, one of them was at an Arsenal Chelsea Women's Cup final when we lost 2-0. And that was I was kind of probably glad I couldn't see that, to be fair. But it just shows uneducated people for me. And I said this to Mikey because I had messaged him, reached out to him because I know what it's like to be trolled and be abused. Because they're not real people. Well, they are people, but they're not going to come up to you in the street and say this. They're uneducated. Like I might not be able to see how the game is going, but that's the whole point of a headset. You kind of know what's going on, and the amount of people that I've seen at the Emirates, or not seen but heard, like, and they're on their phone, so they're not obviously watching the game. So, and I wouldn't even be surprised if the people saying this are not even Arsenal fans, if to be honest, because people just hide behind this abuse, and that's all it is. It's abuse. It's discrimination. I'm not just saying it for people that are blind. I'm saying it like any disability. that people, some of the comments you see on Twitter or Facebook are absolutely vile and disgusting. Like, I'm 29 at the moment, and it affects me sometimes really bad when I've been trolled for it. But I wasn't even angry. I was sad that a kid has had to go through that.
Yeah, you should have to.
No, like, and I know no one should have to go through it, but if you're older, you've had more life experience. But you know what? Fair play to him. He shows I respect him a hell of a lot for having a character like that. And all I say is, if these people or people know people that have opinions and views like that, then that's just so. I don't even. I'm trying not to swear, so I'm doing well here. But,
yeah, don't get us knocked off of YouTube.
No.
Christ's sake.
But like, they're just uneducated. Like, some of the comments I've had, oh, why'd you go if you can't see? And then I explained to them, and they still they just don't get it, or why you're a waste of a ticket. Like, I'm a red member. So one I had, what was it, about 3 months ago. Well, it's not like you've ever seen Arsenal win the league, and that was from a Tottenham fan. So I just wrote back, nor have you. So, and just they just, I think they say things just to try and hurt you as much as they can. And I've always said this: I feel words can hurt you more than actually being physically beaten up. Like, because I went for a stage earlier this season, I gave up like 3 or 4 tickets because of it. Because I was like, oh, well, maybe someone else will get more enjoyment out of it. And it was only my close friends and my actual family. It was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You enjoy
Georgie,
this? Like,
is Mikey okay? Is he?
yeah. So when I spoke to him briefly, he dropped me a message the other day, and he just said thank you, and he's really appreciative of the support. And I think, I might be, don't quote me on it, but I think Zinchenko has reached out to him. I'm pretty sure I've read that somewhere. So I know Arsenal have reached out to him, and like, I think everyone just needs to pull together. Like, no one should be treated like that, whatever club you support. Like, whether I don't like Spurs, but even if it was a Spurs fan, like,
who does?
No, not the fans don't even like Spurs, do they? But it's just not like, I think the worst comment I've had, and I think that was when I first come on here, was when they told me that my family and I should be ashamed that I was allowed out in public on my own. And I think that's one thing that really kind of messed my head up. But through all that, I've had a lot of positives, like Kevin Campbell. I'm actually friends with him now, and like, he reached out to me, and like, he's just really supportive. And Charlie Patino, so Laura Woods, so people like that, there is positives. I don't like to highlight the negative stuff. So the positive sides of it does happen, but
well, George, I'm really glad and proud of the club offering blind and partially sighted services, the facilities, the match commentary, the headphones.
Yeah. They do quite a lot as well. Like, for for kids that have autism as well, they have like a sensory room. So with autism, if like the noise is too much and all that, you can go and sit in that room, and it has from what I've been told, it has a view of the whole ground, like of the whole pitch. So
talking of noise, my kids had to leave the front room on Sunday because it was getting too noisy. I was getting a bit vocal, but anyway, let's push on to something positive. Let's look at the next game, which is West Ham. Lauren, what are we going to expect? West Ham not had a great season. It's all gone horribly wrong for David Moyes. A couple of seasons ago, he was up there within spitting distance of everything. What's the main problem? Is it because everyone's upgraded, everyone's got better? Is it just a quirk of the Premier League?
To be honest, I haven't really looked or spent that much time thinking about West Ham this season, but I know obviously being in, to be completely honest, being in Europe definitely isn't helping them. I mean, I imagine their squad is
but you're a bit more interested now that they're up next.
Absolutely. No, but I do know that they're playing on Thursday nights. So look, we have a bit of longer time to recover from the game. what's the problem? I don't know, because, it's not really an issue with the quality of the team. It's not as if they sold a lot of their good players, and I think it probably is just that they're a bit stretched thin with the amount of games they have in Europe. It's not a team with a massive squad. They're probably suffering a bit of that. They're definitely not a team that should be going down, and I think I'm pretty confident they won't. That being said, I hope they obviously don't get any points against us on the weekend.
I think they're scared that Rice is going to Arsenal, so that's what they were worried about.
Yeah.
That rumour is still doing the rounds, how solid it is. So, I mean, with the expense of what he would probably cost, 80 to 100 million.
I think there's definitely truth to it. I just don't think Arsenal are going to pay what they want.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it's going to be is that it'll be typical what happens, and then right at the last minute Chelsea will say, oh yeah, we'll give you like 900 million on a 28-year
George,
deal.
They've got so much money, they've put a bid in for me. And I can't pick a ball anymore.
I'll take it, mate.
Let's do round the table predictions. We're going to start with you first, Georgie. West Ham away, so let's bear that in mind. What's the score?
I'm going to go 3-1 Arsenal, but I'm not confident with that.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, West Ham don't score enough goals, do they? So
one of their problems.
I think I'll go for 2-0 Arsenal. I think my only slight reservation would be is if Declan Rice is looking to impress prospective future employees at Arsenal, you just don't want it to have the game of the season at the weekend. But I think Arsenal got too much class and too much skill for West Ham. So I'll stick with 2-0 Arsenal.
Lauren?
I think I'm going to go for 2-1. I think it's going to be a bit tight after the weekend. I think a lot of the players are going to go out a bit more cautious than they would have approached the game had we got the win at Anfield. So yeah, I'm going to go with 2-1.
I don't think it'll be easy.
I'll go a grubby 1-0. I'll settle for a 1-0. Hard fought or not. Nick, what's your thoughts on West Ham?
Well, you've given me nowhere to go to score prediction there. You've pretty much taken every combination.
You said about managers making your life hard. Well, we've learned very quickly.
What I would say is there's every chance that there'll only be 3 points between the two teams when Arsenal take the field at the London Stadium on Sunday, because City are playing on the Saturday, aren't they, against Leicester, and you'd fancy them to put that one away. But I think Arsenal will win this one. I think they've shown enough this season that they can get those sort of results that maybe in the past they wouldn't have won that. I do believe you have the firepower to get goals, and I agree with Paul. West Ham don't score that many these days, so yes, they'll be up for it. It's a London derby, and they'll love nothing better than to bloody the nose of the Arsenal. But I do think that it's another game along the way, and it's one you've got to win. Bottom line is, you've got West Ham, Southampton. You've got to take 6 points out of 6. I mean, it's all building up to the 26th of April, obviously, isn't it? But, you've got 2 games before then, looking at the fixtures, West Ham away and Southampton at home. Manchester City got 4 games, but only 1 in the Premier League. You keep winning, and it'll just be fantastic to see what might happen. So I'm just going to leave you with a thought here. It's 6 points at the moment, but you'll have played an extra game before you get to Man City, so you could be 9 points clear. And if you were to sneak it with a Zinchenko winner at the end, you'd be 12 points clear going into May. Or going into the Chelsea game at the end of April, and that surely would have won it for you. But that could happen.
Win it against Chelsea with a Jorginho winner in the 5th minute.
Well, then you're 15 points clear, and it's game over. But no, seriously,
win the title.
West Ham have got to win. Arsenal have got to win that game at West Ham if they've got to want to continue on this title run. And you're absolutely right about there'll be surprises somewhere. People will drop points. Will it be? I don't know, Manchester City away at Fulham, could that be a problem? They've had problems with West Ham before. They might drop points there. You might drop points against Brighton or even Forest. It's who knows? It's been one of the best title races in ages, and it would be lovely to see it go to the end. But I won't lie. I'd love to see the team wearing red and white win it at the end.
Well,
I think
that's
Man
why
City-
we invited you on, Nick. we love that sort of bias.
Man
Podders,
City have got to go away to Brighton as well. Like, I
Mm.
wouldn't want to do that. I know we've got them at the Emirates, but City away to Brighton and Brentford, like that's not easy.
Yeah.
They've also George, they've got to come to Goodison Park still. And,
Oh
and
yeah,
we're-
so it's all down to you. Come on.
yeah. So if we're still in the relegation battle, which undoubtedly we will be, that's going to be a tough game to sit in. Guarantee that.
I take a
And if it-
1-0 Sean Dyche win that you've done against us this
absolutely.
season.
And if you think the Cup is noisy games like that, well, Goodison Park can match it on occasions like that.
No pressure.
right, Podders, you're probably wondering why we haven't done man of the match, because it's obvious, isn't it? It's Ramsdale all the way. Nobody bothered because it's as obvious as the nose on your face. What we're going to do, Podders, is quickly wind up with, we'll go around the table. If anyone's got any questions for Nick, because we can't let him go without asking him some crucial questions. Name one of the games, Nick, that you've enjoyed the most in a well, you've seen many games that have been absolutely blinding, but does one stand out, and why does it stand out in your mind?
Okay. Germany 1, England 5 is the obvious one from an England perspective. Absolutely love that one. Loads of games in the Premier League. I mean, I must admit, I did love from way back in the 90s. And I was at both the 4-3 Liverpool-Newcastle games, but actually the one that always stuck in my mind was Liverpool coming from 3 down to draw 3-3 against Manchester United at Anfield. And I'd been to Anfield a few times, but that's a night that I absolutely got it when people say it's worth a goal. It's a stadium like no other and noise like no other. And I'd go along with that. Lots and lots of fabulous games, and even this year, honestly, Sunday's game was smashing. That's one of the best games I've seen this season. So was the 3-2 with the last-minute winner against Manchester United. That was an absolute belter, and you know the 4-2 win at Villa wasn't bad either. So the excitement level is still as good as ever, and if you got an extra point or two for entertainment, I'm sure that would get you over the line. But I just enjoy nearly all the games I go to these days. I must admit, there's always something on there, but the quality of the Prem is just beyond compare.
Absolutely. Paul, you got a question?
Yeah, quick one for you, Nick. I know you spend a lot of time watching Gillingham these days. So, what is special about watching League Two football compared to the Premier League? But when you've been used to this diet of all the top players, what entices you to watch the League Two team? Because lots of people just don't get it, do they? How involved you can get in that level of football?
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, I found it the perfect antidote to watching the Premier League. I mean, my job for many years was I'd do the games on the Sunday and the Monday, which left Saturdays free to go and watch the Gills. So I got back into the habit of watching them then. Look, the top level is just fantastic with the quality, the skill. I love everything about it. One or two things I don't like quite so much, but it's just a reminder when you go and watch League Two that not everybody can be supremely talented. And I say to my guys who obviously nearly all their football, my two sons, has been watching it on the TV rather than being there, and I had to keep reminding them that, look, if he could play a really good ball or score goals like that, he'd be in the Premier League, not in League Two. But we enjoy it. It's a good atmosphere. You do feel closer to the players, and and you can have a good old moan as well. What I would love to see an improvement in is the officiating at that level. It is really poor, and it gets worse. And I've always said that because of the job that I've done, I'm not going to stand there and shout abuse at referees or anything like that, because it just wouldn't be right given the privileged position I've been in over the years in this game. But I'll tell you this, guys, I've come very, very close to breaking that.
That'd make front page, wouldn't it? Hey, can you imagine? Nick Collins. Anyone else got a question for Nick?
You're gone on. You can go if you want.
No, I'm just trying to think of how to phrase it, but
Yeah,
has
I
there
was
been any?
thinking the same.
Yeah, the same thing. Has there been any games recently, or maybe over the past few years, that you thought, God, I wish I had got the fresh reaction from the manager after that game, or from one of the players after that game?
Well, the thing is, these days, you normally see the reaction of nearly all the players that you want to see. Yeah, there's been one or two moments where something extraordinary has happened at the end, and there's been a last minute twist, and you think, oh my goodness, what are they going to make of that? No, I mean, I can't think of any offhand, I must admit, but it is the league of late goals and late drama. So I suppose in a way you get a bit used to it, the fact that there is going to be something that's going to happen at the end, and therefore it's not quite so unexpected. And the last minute winner or the last minute equaliser is something that goes on and on. I mean, you know, the Premier League is the home of the Aguero goal, isn't it? And everybody said there could be nothing ever more dramatic than that. And there probably won't be, but you never know. There might be. It might be this season that's even more dramatic. So we'll see. I mean, this time it has a different ending.
Paul, one last question before we knock off.
Yeah. George, did you have a question, George? Sorry.
Yeah, it was just I was trying to work out how to say it, but I was obviously when we've seen on the TV like people like Ian Holloway, like he's really funny, but sometimes difficult. Who would you say is the most like funniest you've interacted with in like that sort of setting?
Oh, probably a guy called Barry Fry, who used to manage in the lower divisions, and who was a real character and involved with Peterborough for many years. I think he possibly still is. He was always funny and would say things that would make you laugh. Some appropriate, some not quite so appropriate. But yeah, we got him back once. I'll just tell you this story very quickly. I think he was managing Birmingham at the time, and they played Scunthorpe in an FA Cup game, and it was first round game. Sky was covering it live, and Scunthorpe equalised in the last minute, and it finished 1-1. And there was a lot of scrambling because there'd been quite a few minutes of stoppage time, and we needed an interview very quickly at the end of the game. And the players went off, and they called for Barry Fry to come back out again. And he'd literally just taken his tracksuit bottoms off, and he was starting ready to get in the shower. And they go, "No, Barry, you've got to..." So he came back out, literally just in his pants, and stood there. And I went, "Barry, Scunthorpe really caught you with your pants down, didn't they, with that last minute?" And the cameraman just panned down, and he stood there in his boxers, and he's going, "Oh, you know." But it was really quite funny. There's probably not many managers you could have a laugh with like that.
Yeah.
But he was one of a kind. But I mean, a lot of the managers are terrific for one-liners. I've been the victim of many in my time, but there's plenty that make you laugh and make you quake as well with what they're going to say. But I do find that,
especially like Joe Kinnear or someone.
That's what, sorry.
Especially like Joe Kinnear or someone like him.
Well, yeah. I mean, Harry was always good fun.
Yeah.
He would have a laugh with you. Although sadly he saved most of his best lines for when the cameras weren't on, because
I can imagine
he probably he'd be swearing or something at the time. But
podcast family, thanks for tuning in. My thanks to Laura, my thanks to Paul, Georgie Boy, and especially to Nick Collins. It's been an absolute pleasure, Nick, to have you on. Please come back again, see us again. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you as well, Podders, for your increased subscriptions and the viewership and listenership. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks, guys. Look after yourselves, and you, especially out there, Podders, as well. Take care.
Good luck.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye.